on the suit. Drink water. Don't drink and drive.
Game over.
Take it light. Okay.
Now you're more fluent.
He got three.
Up, Bears.
So this is really good right here. Absolutely. Let's do it.
I was thinking, which is always a dangerous thing. It's always dangerous when I'm thinking.
When the wheels get turning, Tone,
Rich
boy, he's
Paul.
something else.
Is that his name? Rich Paul?
Yes, it is.
Rich Paul? He was on Shay Shay's a while back.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear, and when he said he's as good a shooter as like Steph and Clay, and did you hear this?
I do remember that. Yes, I do.
And I was having a debate with someone because I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, this is ridiculous. And he says, well, he just said shooting. He didn't say anything else. So like when he's wide open, shooting.
No.
So is it safe to say then I'm in that conversation with Magic and Stockton and LeBron, whoever you want to say is a great passer? I'm in that because when no one's covering me and I'm not playing basketball, I can make every pass. Or is it just shooting? Is it just shooting?
When you have a wide open look, you can just get the ball to somebody. No,
Yeah.
Tone, that's some of the most ridiculous stuff. No, that's some of the most ridiculous logic.
I can do no lookers.
No.
Like when I'm just sitting there and like whoop and hit the man every single time.
Even
In
when
fact, if we want to talk shooting, I've sent you clips. I can go knock down 10, 15, 33s in a row. No problem. I've shown you the video of me hitting down the logo 3 on the Raptors court. So you know it's legit logo 3. Does that mean I'm as good a shooter as Steph?
No, it does not mean that, Tone. It does not mean that at all. And I mean, this is again a guy who works for James, who's enhancing James, and I can appreciate that. That's my job, Tone.
Can you appreciate that though?
The reason why. Here's why, Tone. Because
has there ever been a player that's had media hired to make him sound good?
Yeah, Michael Jordan had that with David Falk. 100% they pushed that. No doubt about it. That's your job.
They had media. They had talk show hosts making up.
I'm not because we're living in we're definitely living in a different time now. 100% we are. But it is your job, as it's 100% your job to push people that you work for. That's your job, and not just to push people, but to push content. You know, I mean, the saying, all publicity is good publicity. If they're watching, that's good for clicks. That's good for revenue. Now, none of us believe that James has ever, on any level, been as good a shooter as Steph Curry. None of us. And I'm a James guy, and I don't believe
No, he didn't say LeBron James was as good a shooter. He said he was.
No, that's even worse. That's even worse. No.
And I just think back and I'm like, yeah, when it's the off season, everybody looks good. Ben Simmons looks like a great shooter in the off season, doesn't he?
Go again, Tone, with this. I mean, how many times have we seen the clips of Ben Simmons in the playoff in pickup games?
Oh, and then training camp.
How many times have we seen this? And then when he gets into games, when he's in Brooklyn, when he's in Brooklyn, when he gets into games, it's like the rim is radioactive. It's like it's two magnets like trying to come together, and it's just going the other way. I'm Tone, if I'm being honest with you, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of seeing this stuff. And the reason why I'm tired of seeing this stuff is because you can only work out for a limited amount of time. It's like a boxer. You shadow boxing. When are you going to get in the ring and actually box somebody and win? Mike Tyson,
remember when he said everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face?
Everybody does, Tone. Everybody does. And the logic with Ben Simmons, well, he had a back injury. Well, he was dealing with some mental
illness. Yeah, hey, you can say it.
I can appreciate all of that stuff, sure. But at some point, one or two things has to happen. You either got to get on your job or get the hell on. Which one is it? Because this kind of stuff right here, I have had it with it, Tone. I've had it with watching you shoot the 3 in an open gym with nobody in the gym. I've had it with you. I've had it with looking at you being awesome with the ball. You've already shown me that you have the potential to be an elite player when you played at an all-pro level in the 18-19 season, when you played at an all-pro level on the defensive end. You already showed me that. But then you went to pieces after that, 2 years later. And since then, you've never been the same. Now, the question that needs to be answered is, what else needs to be done with you? Because we've been doing this dance for years now. We've been doing this dance for years now. You've shown me in pickup games. You've shown me in an empty gym you can knock down the three. So it's obvious to me with you knocking down threes, with you knocking down shots, it's obvious to me that you can do it. When you get in games, it's like it's a completely different guy, which tells me that it's upstairs. So the question that I'm asking you is, what exactly is it that you want to do? Do you want to continue to play basketball, or do you like what basketball brings? Which one is it? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't keep showing me that, yo, look at this. I can hit threes. Look at this. I can knock down the mid-range. But then when the arena has 15,000 people in it and the cameras are on, you can't do anything except get off the basketball as quickly as possible. You won't defend. The thing that I'm asking is do you want to play professional basketball at a high level like you did before, or do you not? Which one is it?
Here's the thing. Sorry, that comment. Sorry, that I don't mean to laugh at the comment. It's distracting. So don't do anything crazy. Good. I'm glad that OG's content helped you out. That being said, let me answer your question about Ben Simmons. One, before I answer that question, let me say shout out to the summit. When I was in New York, we went to the summit, and I gotta admit, where you see him and KD and everybody doing their workouts, it's fire. It's amazing. So shout out to the summit and everything they do over there, because there we go. That's so much better. Because that place is super cool. Loved it. Now Ben Simmons does not love basketball. Let's just be real about this. He does not love basketball. He loves the paychecks. He loves probably the attention, the fame, the girls that come with it. We've seen he's dated some, people. That's what he likes. This is not a guy. I'm sorry. He hasn't done anything. I don't know him personally, but he hasn't done anything that shows me I love basketball. Right? He hits the gym. He does his preseason workouts. He looks really good. He gets a big deal. And then once the season starts, he disappears. And this also is a bigger issue that I keep telling people. Skill, talent, those don't make you a great basketball player.
What does?
Right? Like I keep having this discussion. Well, today's player is more talented and more skilled. Agreed. Doesn't mean they're better. Doesn't mean they're worse. But it doesn't mean they're better, because here's a guy that has all the skill and all the talent in the world. He's not a great basketball player, because you need more than skill and talent. Yeah. You need more. And it's, there's gonna be a lot of people who are sitting there saying, man, like, what a waste.
That was my next question to you, Tone. Is he a waste of talent? Is that the question that needs to be answered here? Because again, I think he's 27 years old. We see him in the gym. He looks like he's in great shape. In the process of him being in great shape, he looks like he can still play. The question is can he put it together? We've been waiting years for him to still put it together, and he hasn't. So is Ben Simmons a bust? Is he a what if? I don't think he's a what if. I can't say that he's a what if. My question is he a bust? Because he did make the All-Pro team. He did make the All-League defensive team. He made the All-Star team a couple times. So on the one hand, he did play at an elite level for a short period of time. Then it just went haywire. Does he want to continue to play basketball, and does he want to get back to the level of playing at a high level? Does he want to do that? Because 27 years old, especially in today's NBA, is not that old.
No, I don't think it's an age thing, but I definitely think there's a want thing.
Right.
And only he can answer that because what he's showing is that he does not want to play. He does not want to play. That's what he's showing. I'm not saying that's how he feels. He knows. Excuse me, how he feels, but is it, are you seeing, maybe I'm seeing something different? Are you seeing something different that would tell you, yeah, this is a guy that really wants to play basketball?
Tone, I see a guy who feels like he has to do it. That's what I see. I see a guy who I'm obligated. This is what I'm getting paid for. It's a job. I have to be here. But I'm going to tease you with what I can do. I'm not going to consistently do it, but I'm going to tease you with this, and I'm just going to get my paycheck and I'm going to go. I don't really have the desire to be awesome like I used to be, because maybe this isn't worth it for me anymore.
Or I was gonna be. I know you give him. He had that one season, but realistically, it's the potential. Like, he showed it for such a short time. Like, we don't even know. Is he that guy? We've seen guys come and have great runs, short runs, but that's not. Is that who he is?
To be honest with you, Tone, when I watched him at that particular time, I wasn't all the way out, but I did feel like, as a defender, I was like, yo, I think he's an elite defender, and I think I can get a lot more years of this. I don't know if we could win an NBA championship with him, because we had a stretch where it was like 2 or 3 years where it was the same thing. It was 16-7, 17-6, 17-7. And I'm thinking to myself, is this all I'm going to get? Is this who this guy is? And I think it was after the 21 season. I was like, if I get this again, I'm out. This is all I'm going to get. I'm out.
Colin Cowherd said, we have him. LeBron can retire.
Yes, he did say that.
He thought he was the second coming.
Yes, he was. And when I'm watching James stand in the middle of the paint, when they're playing against the 76ers the night before Kobe was killed, I remember that game. It was on a Saturday night. They're playing them in prime time, and he's basically standing in the middle of the lane and daring Ben Simmons to shoot, and Ben Simmons won't look at the basket. He won't even look at the basket. So with that being said, I'm thinking to myself, Tone, does this guy want to be great again? That's because there was, even though it was a short period of time, I won't argue that.
You think 17-7, 16-7, whatever, an elite defense is great?
At that time, yes, I do. Now, game is a lot different today. The game is a lot different today. There's more scoring than it was back then. I mean, Tone, we got almost 40 guys averaging 20.
You talk like he was playing in the 90s or the 2000s.
Well, here's the difference, Tone. 6-7 years ago.
Long ago.
Well, even if it wasn't that long ago, Tone, we got 40 guys today in the game. Almost 40. I think we got 38 guys in the game today, averaging 20 a game. I think last season, we had 6 guys averaging 30. We've never had that in the NBA. Never. So 17-7 on elite defense, and all-star and all-pro. He was on his way to being great.
Okay. On his way. Okay. I can
100%, he was on his way to being great. What happened in Philly when they played in the playoffs and he had that meltdown, he was never the same after that. So I got to ask the question, despite the mental illness and all of that stuff, do you still want to play basketball? And do you want to be great again? I don't think he can, though, because I think that meltdown was mental. And I've seen guys have mental meltdowns. Chris Webber to a lesser extent with the timeout. Yep. Never really recovered. Nick Anderson missing the free throw. Never recovered. I think even Derrick Rose, if you remember Derrick Rose, when he was injured, you remember how long it took him to come back? And remember, I don't know if you'll remember this. Most people won't, though. But I remember watching every single day and seeing his workouts and people saying, he's back. Look at him. The explosion is there. The athleticism, but he wasn't playing. And the question was, why isn't he playing? Well, mentally, there's a fear. I'm going to come down wrong. I'm going to re-injure it. And that stopped him from getting back to who he was very quickly. And then it dragged out so long, and the mental never, I think, changed. And then look, he reimagined himself and came back as a different player, as a role player, and he's had a good career, and people love Derrick Rose, but he was never the same Derrick Rose. But I don't think it was because his body couldn't do it. Eventually his body couldn't do it, but I think more so because I remember that comeback and him working out. It was mental. Tony played 10 more years after he tore his knee up. So it's not like he only played a year or 2 years.
I understand. I'm saying he still played, but he played very different. Is my point.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Ben Simmons, I think that's what I'm saying is once you have that meltdown, you're never the same.
Right.
So when you say does he want to play, it might just be he can't, because some people. Derrick Rose had the mental fortitude to change his game and find a way to play 10 more years in a different style.
Right.
Not everybody has that mental toughness to come back and be like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Can we get Ben Simmons back to that?
I'm not comparing myself to an NBA player, but I had a devastating, I tore all the ligaments, my arch, my Achilles, and my ankle. I, to this day, am scared to jump. Right. Because I'm like, what if I come down wrong? I'm too old to re-injure anything. Yeah. But my point, after that injury, I was never the same again. Right. And so I could only imagine, take that and multiply it by $1 million, $10 million, because that's what it's going to mean. I'm going to be different. Wouldn't
that be the motivational tone? Like if
he has the money.
Right. I mean, I do have the money, right? I got the money. I got to the NBA. I got paid. I could quit today. But is that what I got into this for? Did I only get into this? Into this to get paid, or did I want to actually be a really good NBA player? I want to be that.
I think that's the conundrum he's facing, is that I think part of his brain is, hey, I play basketball because I love basketball. I want to be great.
Right.
Then the other side is saying, dude, you can't do this. It's all those voices in your head. And it can be daunting. And so, like I say, I don't know him enough to say whether he does or doesn't. He hasn't done anything to show me he wants to.
Right.
That might be beyond his control.
Ben Simmons got to get it together. I hope he does, because honestly, Tone,
I love a comeback story. I love a comeback story.
Oh my goodness! I own all to this day on DVD. I own all the Rocky movies, all of them.
First of all, which is your favorite?
Oh, Rocky had me wanting to fight Drago for real. I was 13 years old.
We had this conversation.
I wanted to for real fight Drago. He really had me wanting to fight Drago for real.
You and Mrs. Fluent.
Yes.
Rocky 4. For me, it's 3. Mm-hmm. I was never big on the whole, maybe because I don't know, maybe I'm not American, on the whole Russia, USA, or like that seemed it seemed forced. Russia and America, whereas I could see Clubber Lang. I know him. Every neighborhood has one. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I related to him more. And so I was like, that some dude, some tank machine from Russia, I must break you. That seemed too made up for me, although I'm sure that's true. But Clubber and probably people said one time in my life I was him. It's just that guy who's just like, you're disrespecting me. All I said was nice shirt. You know what I mean? So,
it wasn't the Russia US thing. No. What he did to Apollo Creed, I wanted to fight him for real.
Well,
my goodness.
With all due respect, I'm going to get blasted for this, I'm sure. He deserved what he got.
Oh, he definitely deserved the ass whooping. No question about that. No doubt. And the fact that Rocky didn't stop it, that's what made it even worse for me. Because I'm like, yo, you're not going to do nothing about this, Rock? Nothing? Give me a break. You're just going to let your man get in there and get killed. And you're not going to stop this. I wanted to fight. I'm 13 years old, and I really wanted to fight Drago. I really did.
You know what I have now, right?
Uh-oh.
Have you heard the Rocky IV conspiracy?
No.
The Rocky IV conspiracy. First, I'm going to give you a little Rocky trivia, because now you said you have all the tapes.
I do.
What happens at the end of Rocky III?
What happens at the end of Rocky III? Both Apollo Creed and Rocky get in the ring. Nobody else is around, and they fight.
Because he said, you owe me one more fight.
Yes, you do. You owe me a favor. Yes, you do.
The conspiracy goes like this. Apollo's a showboater. Apollo has a big mouth, although they even said it, like we'd never talk about it. He's got a big mouth. If he won that fight, so the story goes, he won that fight, and Rocky was scared that he was going to start blabbing. that he beat him in that private fight.
Had him killed.
So he didn't have him killed, but he held on to that towel a little bit too long for a reason.
I don't know if I hate that, Tone. I don't.
To keep Apollo quiet, he's like, nah. Well, tuck this towel right back.
to add to that, I mean, if you've seen the extension of Rocky, which is Creed, and if you remember the first one, where Apollo Creed's son says, "I heard about the secret fight." Well, how did you hear about this secret fight? This fight was like 30 years ago. How do you know about it? How do you know about it? Maybe I don't know. I don't know if I hate that, Tone. I don't.
Apollo sealed his own fate. Speaking of loving comeback stories, this is a story that never should have been a comeback story. It should have always remained. Oklahoma City will give Seattle Sonics. They're the SuperSonics, by the way. They're not the Sonics. They're the SuperSonics. Supersonic. Their history back. Pause. I'm filled with trivia today. Do you know why they're called the SuperSonics?
Seattle is the home of Boeing, and the supersonic jet, if I'm not mistaken, was built in Seattle.
That is very common mistake. Boeing was set to make the supersonic jet in Seattle. They named the team the SuperSonics, and they actually had moved it and never got built there.
The idea was there.
Not as good of a story, but
right. The idea was there. Right. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like when I found that, I was like, "Oh yeah, that sucks." Like, no one wants to hear that.
Now you're more fluent.
Now I am.
So here's the thing for me: there shouldn't be any history to give back. Seattle
what does that
left.
even mean, Tone? What does that mean, Tone? Like we're giving you your history back. Can you please explain that to me?
I can't explain it. So technically, when Seattle moves to Oklahoma City, all the history of Seattle, so championships, records, technically, like even Gary Payton, they wanted to retire his number. And he said, nah. He said, I never played for OKC. I played in Seattle. But technically, they own the history books, much like the Minneapolis Lakers moved to LA. They have all the record. The Philadelphia Warriors moved to San Francisco, eventually become Golden State. It's theirs. Who is it? The Buffalo Royals become the Kansas City Royals, become the Sacramento Kings? No, Rochester Royals, excuse me.
Rochester
Royals, Kansas City Royals. Oh, yeah, Cincinnati. I always forget Cincinnati. Cincinnati Royals, Kansas City,
Sacramento
Kings. Sacramento has that history, right? That's why they have a title. It's never anywhere near Seattle. Let's be honest, why the Lakers have 17 titles instead of 12, I want to say. I think. So it's because the Minneapolis, the Grizzlies, technically, although short-lived in Vancouver, they get that history. So I am one that, and this goes against, I know I'm not saying, people are going to say it's because I'm a Laker fan. I'm not. If you keep the name, right, like the New Orleans Jazz moved to Utah and are the Utah Jazz. To me, that's the same team. They move cities, but they keep the history, right? The Lakers move from Minneapolis to LA. They're still the Lakers. The Grizzlies move from Vancouver to Memphis. They're still the Grizzlies.
Correct.
But when you take, the Cleveland Browns, if I can use another sport, thank you, Woodage, and you move to Baltimore and become the Baltimore Ravens, you no longer have the Cleveland Browns history.
No, you don't.
Now, Charlotte's a little bit trickier. Because Charlotte, the Hornets move and become the New Orleans Hornets, then become the Pelicans. The Bobcats get an expansion team, and then once the New Orleans Hornets become the New Orleans Pelicans, the Charlotte Bobcats re-get that one's a little bit trickier. But for the most part, I think if you change cities but keep the name, keep the identity of the team, cool. The second you go from Seattle SuperSonics to Oklahoma City Thunder, done. Seattle keeps Seattle and all the history books, and Oklahoma City starts fresh.
Tone,
for me.
In your house right now, where you live, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to steal your house. I'm going to pick your house up and I'm going to move your house somewhere else. And I'm not only am I going to move your house somewhere else, I'm going to take everything in your house and I'm going to move it somewhere else. And then I'm going to tell you, Tone, You can have all the memorabilia and the pictures back in your house if you get a new house.
Yeah, that's
Are you kidding me right now? First and foremost, y'all stole our team.
that's my stuff.
That's number one. It's not like it was yours. You stole our team. You guys weren't serious about building a new arena in Seattle. That's number one. Number two, this Seattle team is the only. I don't know if you know this, but since I think I did tell you this, since 1979, which is 45 years ago, they're the only city that has an NBA champ that doesn't have their team. There's no other city that can say that.
Are you serious?
That's a fact, Tone. That's not my opinion. That's a fact.
Say that again for the people in the cheap seats.
One more time for the people in the cheap seats. The Seattle SuperSonics, the city of Seattle, since 1979, which was 45 years ago, is the only city to have an NBA champion that does not still have their team. Everybody else that's in almost 50 years, everybody else who's had an NBA champion still has their team in their city. Seattle is the only city that doesn't still have their team.
In history, who do you know who the others are?
Well, I can take that, to be honest with you, Tone. I can take that back if I'm not mistaken. I think that the last NBA champion was in 1950. It was in 1957 when St. Louis did it. Since 1957, St. Louis, when they had Bob Pettit.
Yeah, Bob Pettit.
Yep, them and the Seattle SuperSonics are the only cities that have an NBA champ that don't still have their team.
Oh, Minneapolis, the Lakers.
That was 80 years ago. I'm talking about like
in history.
Right, in history. Okay, now if we want to talk about history,
there's a few more, right? Like
there's a few more, but I'm post merger.
Okay, post merger.
Seattle is the only city that has an NBA champion, and they merged in 1977. They're the only city that has an NBA champion that does not still have their NBA team.
We need to get Seattle a team.
Well, when you talk about expansion, Tone, that's why you and me get into it. When you talk about LeBron James in Vegas, I'm like, okay, first of all, y'all stole our team up here in Seattle. Let's start there. Like, I don't even know why y'all talking to Seattle. I don't know why y'all talking to Baltimore or Kansas City or all these other people. Hello, y'all stole our team. Can we have our team back, first of all? Number two, Seattle is a basketball city. There aren't how many basketball cities are you aware of, Tone? In your estimation, how many basketball cities are there
that don't have a team, or just in general?
How many when we talk about the NBA, even though we got a bunch of teams in the NBA, how many basketball cities?
There's probably no more than half a dozen.
I was thinking like 10.
That might be high.
I was thinking like 10 off the top of my head.
You think a third of the NBA teams are in a basketball city?
New York, DC, New York, DC, Houston.
You think Houston's a basketball city? Texas is a football state.
Yeah, Texas is a football state, but I think Houston is a basketball city.
I don't. That one's 50-50, but I'll give it to you. Seattle, you said Seattle.
Seattle, Los Angeles.
No. You
ain't buying LA as a basketball city, Tone?
No.
Do you think that Miami is not a basketball city? I don't think Miami is a basketball city.
Miami's not a sports town unless you're winning. They're Miami is much like, for me, like LA, which is it's an entertainment city. Right. So if you've got big stars, right, you're winning, those types of things.
Sure.
Yes.
Boston, I think, is a basketball city. I said DC.
I could see Boston. That I could see.
Boston is a basketball city. I said DC. I think Houston is a basketball city. New York. I'm not sure. I don't think San Francisco is a basketball city. That's a football town. San Francisco is not a.
I think San Francisco is a baseball city.
You can also say that too.
When I lived in San Francisco, I will tell you, I used to be in much better shape. When I lived in San Francisco, one of my things was that I would run from where I lived, kind of in the financial district, down around where the baseball field was, up the wharf, and then back home. It was a long run, but it was very therapeutic. That being said, when I first went and saw a baseball game, when I met people, everybody was a Giants fan. Like they liked the other things, the 40. Don't get me wrong, they love their 49ers, but like if you were like, you have to give up one, they were like, I'm sorry. They'd apologize and give up the 49ers. They would. They were definitely, I felt, again, that's just through my personal experience, I felt like it was a baseball town.
I'm thinking 16. I'm thinking 6, Tone, off the top of my head.
It's about half a dozen. I'm
thinking like 16.
And you're right. Seattle's one of them, and they're the only one that doesn't have a team.
They don't have a team. Indianapolis is a basketball city.
Indiana, absolutely.
Indianapolis is a basketball city. So like what, 5, 6 cities, maybe 7,
5 to 7, sure.
that are legit basketball. Like Memphis is not a basketball city. No, it's not.
No.
San Antonio, I ain't buying San Antonio as a basketball city. No, it ain't. I ain't buying that. San Antonio is, even though they've been around for as long as they've been around, I don't think San Antonio is a basketball city. I
have trouble believing any city in Texas. They love their football so much. San Antonio though, I'll give them credit. They turned a sewer into a river walk, and people think it's cool. I'll never understand that.
Don't get in that water. Don't do it. It's terrible.
Are we talking pro basketball? Because Warren Tyler's like, TD12. North Carolina, I think, is a basketball state, but
yeah, North Carolina is a basketball state. Is Charlotte a basketball state?
College than maybe more college.
It would be a basketball town though. But when I think about,
I know we're jumping all over the place here, but so let's go back to it. So Seattle 100% needs to get its team back.
Yes, they do.
Vegas is going to get a team because LeBron's going to own it. When those two teams join the West, what team moves over to the East to make it 16-16? Is it Memphis or New Orleans?
I think Memphis is further east than New Orleans is.
They seem. I know I'm going by a map, and that doesn't technically count because it's by latitude. But it looks like they're pretty.
Yeah, I think Memphis is a little further east, and not only is Memphis a little further east, I think they'll be in either the Central Division.
Because they're further north.
Yeah,
I think they're pretty similar east. I think because they're further north, I think Memphis gets it too.
Yeah, they'll probably be in the Central Division, or they won't be in the Atlantic Division.
No, that would not be.
They won't be in the Atlantic Division.
With the Bulls
with the Bulls in Milwaukee and Indiana. I think they'll be in that division.
That makes sense.
That's where I think that they'll be. But Seattle, like I said, of all the teams of all the cities, that's a basketball city.
Yeah,
it's one of those towns that I actually regret not getting to. As much as I went to see Shaq play, I never got up to Seattle, and I regret that. I do.
You've been to Seattle? You mean just to see a game?
I've never been to a SuperSonics game, though. Not one time. But I've been up there. I've been to Seattle a couple of times, but I've never been there to see a SuperSonics game, which I regret that because that's a basketball city. They love their basketball up there, 100%, and they got the team stolen. They did.
They did. Well, let me say a couple things. One, I love the city of Seattle. Spent a lot of time in Seattle. Almost moved to Seattle because when I was there for 2 weeks and it didn't rain once, and Seattle, when it doesn't rain, is beautiful. And I used to go there like for a week 3 to 5 days every month. And every other visit after that first time where I spent 2 weeks rained. But that being said, every other time that 2 weeks, they almost got me. But I will say this. I was fortunate enough to get a Seahawks game. Back in the day, a SuperSonics game, a Sounders, I believe, was the soccer team. That was actually really cool. Watching everybody come out in their lime fluorescent green towels, singing. That was kind of cool. But my favorite story of Seattle is this: I was at the Silver Cloud Hotel. I was there on business. The Silver Cloud Hotel is literally right across the street from the stadium. I'm in the bar, restaurant, whatever, of that hotel because I'm going to have some lunch and then I got to go to the airport and I'm flying home. So I'm sitting at the bar, of course. It's Sunday, watching football, right? Eating away, watching the game. When the run happens, Do you remember Marshawn Lynch? When the crowd noise hit the decibel, the windows in the restaurant across the
No
street
way they didn't, Tom. No,
they
weren't.
were shaking. And I'm like, so I'm watching it on the screen, and like the TV, you're seeing it's doing this, right? And then I kind of, and I'm looking where I'm like, I know where I'm like, there's a rattle. I'm like, whoa. It was like, just imagine. Everybody who watched it on TV was like, wow, because they saw the TV, like the cameraman swaying. I was getting it double going, damn. Like it was, I was like, why didn't I stay one more night? Why didn't I get tickets to this game? Beastquake, thank you.
I feel like that the city of Seattle, that's a basketball city. And basketball cities need to have pro basketball teams.
Yeah,
you had Ray Allen up there. You had Ray Allen up there for 5 years. We're talking about when they lost their team. We're talking about at that time the best shooter in the history of pro basketball. You had him up there for 5 years. How you not preserving that? How does that just walk away?
What they drafted Kevin Durant right before they lost the team.
Yes, they did. Kevin Durant is in Seattle. You go from Ray Allen. Yes.
That team a couple years later goes to an NBA final.
Yes, you got Ray Allen, and you lose Ray Allen. Ray Allen moves on, and you draft Kevin Durant, and then you lose your team. Which even to this day, I still don't like the way that went down, Tone. And I'm not a fan of them I'm not a fan of the Oklahoma City Thunder holding the Seattle SuperSonics, their memorabilia and all their records hostage. This isn't yours. This isn't yours. This belongs to the city of Seattle. They played basketball in Seattle for a bunch of years, from I forgot which year. I think it was like, I want to say in the early 70s when they got a team. From then up until 2008 when they lost the team. So we're talking over 30 years. And for you to say, okay, we're going to hold on to this. If you get a team back, it's the same thing, Tone. Like I said, I'm going to take your house and everything in it, I'm going to lift it up and I'm going to move it somewhere else. And then I'm going to tell you, Tone, you can have all the stuff in your house back, the furniture, the pictures, everything that's in here. You can have this all back if you get a new house. That doesn't make any sense.
Yes, it makes no sense. Makes no sense. So that was like a top, I don't want to say it was a top 10, but we kind of did the top 10 cities. How do you feel about the NBA? Well, I guess not the NBA. I think it's CBS coming out with the coaches, top 10, well, the top 30 coaches. But how do you feel about this list?
I don't know if I hate it, Tone. Right? I don't. Well, let's go.
Doesn't sound like you love it.
I don't know if I hate it because I don't know if Rick Carlisle is the third best coach in the NBA. I'm not sure about that. I gotta take a look. I got to take a look at who else is on the list because I'm not sure.
All right, so let's just do the top 10. I'll give you the list. So at number 10 is Tom Thibodeau. Number 9, for the Knicks, Mike Budenholzer, who's now the Suns coach.
Coach
8,
Bud. Okay.
Ime Udoka. Number 7, Will Hardy of the Jazz. Shout out to Will Hardy, and of course his assistant. Of course, his friend of the show, Scott Morrison. Oops, that didn't work. Let me try that again. There we go. Will Hardy. Number 6, Mark Daigneault of the Thunder.
I don't think Rick Carlisle's a better coach than him.
Number 5 is Ty Lue of the Clippers. Number 4 is Steve Kerr, who should not be there. Number 3 is Steve Kerr's not a top 10 coach. Number 3, Rick Carlisle. Number 2, Nick Nurse. Number 1, Eric Spoelstra.
I think Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the game. I think Nick Nurse does the most with, I'm not going to say he does the most with the least, but I think he maximizes what he has. And I think that makes him a damn good coach. Now, he can be a bit pretentious, and there's some times with Nick Nurse that you get to a point where, he kind of wears out his welcome. I can get with that. But for the most part, he's a great X and O guy. Rick Carlisle, I don't think he's a better coach than Ime Udoka. I think Ime Udoka is a better motivator. I think he's better on defense. I think Rick Carlisle is a good X and O coach, but I think Ime is better with younger talent. I do not love Steve Kerr at the number 4 spot. I don't think Steve Kerr is a bad coach. I just don't think that he's good in terms of being versatile. I think he only knows how to coach one way. And because he only knows how to coach one way, I don't know about that. Put the best group of guys on the floor and then go get Steve Kerr.
I can didn't Luke Walton coach them to a pretty damn good record too?
Yes, he did. We had
it's pretty easy when you got those guys.
We had Andre Iguodala in the huddle drawing up plays. That's what we had going on with that crew. But with that being said, Steve Kerr, I don't think he's better than Mark Daigneault. I don't think Steve Kerr is better than Quinn Snyder, if I'm being honest with you. I think Quinn Snyder is a damn good coach.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think Kerr's not even in the top 10 for me. But let me give you some names.
Yep.
That might be surprisingly out of the top 10. Which one do you think is the biggest wow?
Mm-hmm.
I believe at least one. He may have won 2 Coach of the Year. Mike Brown of the Kings coming in at 13. Right behind him. Now, it might be currently, right, because of his age.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Popovich at 14. Snyder at 16, excuse me. Doc Rivers at 22, JB Bickerstaff at 23, Billy Donovan at 24. The only one that I know for a fact they got 2 right. For sure. Number 1, Eric Spoelstra, and number 30, JJ Redick. Those are the only 2 I know they got right.
We don't know how good JJ Redick is.
Oh, I know he's number 30.
I already know that. I already know how you feel about him. JB Bickerstaff is a lot better coach than the bottom 10 in the league. He's a lot better coach than that. I give JB Bickerstaff much more credit than people do about how good of a coach he is. I think he's one of the better defensive minds in the game. I think he's also good at maximizing young talent. I think they were decimated by injury last year. I think they pulled the plug on him a little too quickly. I like JB Bickerstaff as a coach. He's also good at managing games. He knows how to work officials. In the process of him knowing how to work officials, he knows when a guy gets going, how to continue to get that guy going. Spo is the best X and O guy. I think Spo is the best at in-game adjustments.
Well, let me pause you there and ask. Like, they're doing this top 10 list. I don't know what the criteria is, right? It's not winning because Joe Mazzulo's at 11 and he just won an NBA championship.
And he won the Eastern Conference championship the year before that.
So it's not winning.
Right.
What's the criteria?
Well,
what would be your criteria?
One, I think winning is a part of that. 2, how you adjust in game. What kind of X and O coach are you? How your players respond to you? What kind of respect they have for you? What kind of history you have as a coach? Have you been good with only great players, but you're able to turn around other guys that people have no idea about? A prime example would be Phil Jackson. Everybody talks about Phil Jackson. You know, the only reason why he was great because he had Shaq, he had Kobe, he had Jordan, he had Scottie Pippen. But don't forget there was a stretch where he had Bryant and Lamar Odom and Luke Walton and Shannon Brown, and they were making the playoffs. And Phil Jackson had a lot to do with that. As good as Bryant was, Phil Jackson had a lot to do with them making the playoffs. It wasn't just roll the balls out. No, there was some discipline that needed to be there. There was some things that needed to be done. And I think Phil Jackson implemented the triangle, and he was able to get those guys. He was able to get those guys to buy in. They just didn't have enough talent, but they had enough talent in the Western Conference to win some games and make the playoffs when the Western Conference was a nightmare. So I think Phil Jackson is a lot better coach than people give him credit for, and he's already at the top of the list.
I guess he brought in the triangle. Okay, I guess that's true. But it wasn't. Do you give him credit though for bringing it? Like what? He was smart enough to bring in.
Not only I give Phil more credit.
The teams you're talking about, right? Like I pulled it up quickly because I was like, maybe I don't think my memory is as good as yours. That 05-06 season, he had taken over the team part way through the previous season, but they were 45-37.
Yep. 6 seed, made the
third in the
playoffs.
Pacific,
Mhm.
42 and
6 seed,
40 the next year.
7 seed, made the playoffs. Mhm.
You know, and then they're 57 and
That's when they get
that's
when
the
they
year
get
they get
Gasol.
Pau Gasol.
Yeah, that's when
They're
they got
57 and
Gasol.
25. They finish
Mhm.
first in the Pacific, and then they win their two
Yep.
championships back to back. And then the year after, again, 57 wins. Okay, yeah. And there's a
I
stretch
think that
there. There was a stretch where the team, you know, it was Kobe and nobody else, right? Like you had Chris Mim and Shannon Brown and those like
Chucky Brown and Chucky Atkins, guys like that. That's who he's running around with.
Jordan
And
Farmar.
yes, guys like that. That's who he's running around with. But with that being said, Tone, you still have to. You might not Kwame Brown. Yeah, that's what was going on. You don't have the talent, sure, to compete at a championship level. But Phil was such a good manager. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about guys buying into what you're doing. And I feel like Spo does that. Right. I feel like Spo does a great job in getting guys to buy into what it is he's doing. And I think Spo relates to players. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about what a criteria is with a coach. Your X and O's, that doesn't matter if guys don't buy into what you're doing, if they don't respect you as a coach. And how do you gain that respect? You gain that respect by giving them respect, by getting them to work hard. Once you do that, then they'll try your system. And then they'll buy into what you're doing. Phil was more of a manager than he was more of an X and O. That was Tex Winters. Tex Winters was the X and O.
Yeah, Tex Winters was the offense. Phil was really the I'm gonna, kumbaya and let's do some meditation and whatever. But like, listen, they didn't always buy in. Like Pippen was pissed when he gave Kukoc that final shot, even though it was the right play, right? Kukoc makes it and they win the game. But it's interesting because it was a different time back then.
Sure.
And I always tell everybody, they say, well, Phil Jackson, he's the greatest coach of all time. And, he's got 11 rings. And I'm like, yes, he does. I said, but I go, yeah, it's tough to say what's the reason. But because I hear this a lot, well, Jordan and Kobe only won with Phil. So, all the credit goes to Phil. And I'm like, you can't give all the credit to either one, but Phil only won with Jordan and Kobe.
Right.
Yes, Kobe and Jordan only also won with Phil. But if 1990 was 2020, we might never know the name Phil Jackson. Because what did Phil Jackson do in 1990? Well, he did pretty much the same thing that Doug Collins, a second-year coach who had zero coaching experience. He never coached fourth graders. Okay. He's never coached a day in his life. They gave him the job. And
he was Steve Kerr. That's what you're telling me. He was Steve Kerr.
No. Steve Kerr has significantly more experience because Steve Kerr, played under Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich, then was a GM in Phoenix. So at least he was an executive in Phoenix with Mike D'Antoni and then became a coach. Doug Collins went from playing like the broadcast booth. He's JJ Redick is what he is.
Or Jason Kidd.
Or Jason Kidd. Yeah. No, not even, because at least Jason Kidd went straight from player of the Nets to coach of the Nets. Right. Like there wasn't and those guys were better players. Doug Collins, not like Doug Collins was a great player either. Right. So the transition, but what did he do in his second season? He went and lost to the Pistons. Well, they bring in Phil Jackson, who was an assistant, who had won in the CBA or whatever league he was playing, the Desert League.
Too. And in Puerto Rico.
And Puerto Rico, right? And what does he do? He loses to the Pistons in the playoffs. And so in 2020, they're like, they probably fire that guy. And maybe I'm just recent history of the Lakers, right? Oh, you didn't win it all? Fired. Heck, you won it all. You're fired.
He definitely gets fired, Tone. That's not your opinion. That's a fact. 3 straight years you lose to the same team. 3 straight years. Yeah. You lose to the same team. He's getting fired. No doubt about that.
He only did it once, right? It was Doug Collins the first year. But he loses, and it's like he would have been fired, and there would have been another coach in 91. Now, does that change the history of what the Bulls do, or do they still go on and win? And don't know. But if he has that one stint and then gets fired, you know how it is. Not every coach gets a second chance.
We might not never hear from Phil
You
Jackson.
may never know who the hell Phil Jackson is.
We may never see the triangle offense.
Now he takes that 1 year. Yeah, the triangle was a flop, right? Yeah, we never see that again. But what happens is they give him that second season because Jerry Krause, to his credit, believes in him, believes in the system, right? Heck, he got Michael Jordan to buy into it and taking the ball out of his hands and reducing his numbers statistically.
Right.
So he buys into it. Then they three-peat. Cool. Obviously, the next 2 years, Jordan's retired, blah, blah, blah. They get Dennis Rodman. They three-peat again. What does he do? He's not dumb. He doesn't go and grab the Memphis Grizzlies job, the Vancouver Grizzlies job and say, I want to build a new team. He doesn't go back to his old franchise and say, I want to take the Knicks to a title. He goes and teams up with Kobe and Shaq.
Yeah, I'll wait. I'll hang on.
He's not dumb.
I'll wait. I'll absolutely wait. So, and that's why I have such respect for Eric Spoelstra. But I don't want to give all the credit to Eric Spoelstra more, Tone, than I want to give the credit to the Miami Heat organization. They're very much like the Steelers, where the talent is homegrown and we're not going to get rushed into making a rash decision like when James publicly wanted Spo fired and Pat Riley's like, no, we're not firing him. So you better figure it out because we're not firing him and we're not trading you because we just got you. So figure it out. And I feel like when you grow talent like that at home, I feel like that enhances your organization. And I think that really helped Eric Spoelstra because he knew that they had his back as a coach. With him knowing that they had his back as a coach, I think that gave him more confidence as a coach. Can
I just say I love that about the Steelers? Do you know how many coaches they've had in their history?
I think 3. Yeah.
3.
That's it.
No, yes. I forget. Oh, who's the first one? Your memory's better than mine.
Damn, Tone, I'm actually drawing a blank right now.
I know it's Cowher.
Yeah, Cowher.
And Tomlin. And whoever was the guy before him, I'm sure the chat will chime in because the chat is smart. But it's those are the 3. That's it. Knox.
Chuck Knowles. Chuck Knowles is his name, yeah. Chuck Knowles. That's
Chuck Knowles, there you go. I knew we were going to get there. We beat you, Woodage. Woodage like Chuck Knowles. That's his name. So it goes Chuck Knowles, Bill Cowher, Tomlin. I love that about them. That's why, it's just, again, coming from a franchise that changes quarterbacks and coaches like underwear. Yeah. I do say that's amazing. 3 coaches since 1969. You'd mentioned LeBron wanted him fired. Spo, and he said no, deal with it. What do you think was the factor? So as you know this, LeBron signed technically he signed a 6-year deal with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who then traded him to the Miami Heat, if we want to be technically. Because if I say he signed with Miami, someone will, he didn't sign. It was sign and trade.
Sign and trade. That's what happened.
So he signed with Cleveland. Cleveland trades him to Miami in a sign and trade deal, which is good for Cleveland too, by the way, because they got some draft picks. But he had an option to opt out after year 4. Of these 3 things, and you can say other, so maybe your 4th option would be other. But what do you think was the main factor in him opting out after 4 years of the team that he picked and built himself? Was it because Coach Spo? Was it because Wade and Bosch were starting to decline and get older? Or was there something, my understanding, some rumors, there were some issues with him and Pat Riley butting heads? Or I guess number 4 would be, did he just really want to go back to Cleveland and get back together with Gilbert? Which I doubt that. I don't think it's Gilbert more than, he's on record saying that he would drive through the city of Cleveland in the offseason and imagine a parade this is when he was playing with the Miami Heat. Tone, of all the things that you said, but I can't believe anything he says.
But here's the thing, though. The thing that you said, the 4th thing, I think, is the biggest thing. I don't think it was right. I think
wanted to go back to Cleveland.
I don't think he ever wanted to leave in the first place. I think he had to go, and I understood it, but I don't think he ever wanted to leave.
Yeah, I understood why he left too. I do understand that,
and that's why he came back. If you look at all the other stuff you mentioned, Riles, with Spo, the Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh declining, all of that stuff was added. He left to go to Miami because he had to learn. That's it. Once he had an opportunity to come back home, he did it. Now, there was a reason why there was nobody else. Phoenix, the Knicks, any other organization, because I just don't think that he ever wanted to leave Cleveland. I think it was always Cleveland. I think he always wanted to be there right from the beginning. I don't think he ever wanted to leave there. I think all of the other stuff, Spo, all of that other stuff, I just feel like that just added to him leaving. He was going to leave anyway, but that just added to it. I never, even when I was down here, Tone, even when he was down here, I never felt like he was going to be down here for 8-10 years. I never felt like that.
You really didn't think not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5.
I thought that was smoke. I never thought that he was going to, because it didn't feel like he wanted to be here like that. It just never felt like that. It just felt like he was here in the meantime. And then once that was over, he was gone. That's why I wasn't surprised when he left.
So why does he leave Cleveland again? Because you know what? You know what he said? I'm never leaving again.
That's why I was surprised.
I don't believe anything he says.
That's what I was surprised about, Tone. I didn't understand why he left the second time, because I thought that with him being back in Cleveland, sure, they had some contract issues, and it took some convincing, Tone, if we're being honest. And Maverick is on record talking about how everybody was on board. He wasn't one of those guys who was on board with coming back to Cleveland. He didn't want anything to do with Dan Gilbert after what Dan Gilbert had said. He wanted nothing to do with him whatsoever. It took some convincing with Maverick. But with the rest of those guys, they were like, all right, fine. With that being said, him coming back to Cleveland, I thought that him coming back to Cleveland, they were going to have an opportunity to compete for NBA championships until he retired. Because I don't think he wanted to play anywhere else. I didn't realize how much the business of LeBron James was happening. Mm-hmm. And when he moved to Los Angeles, it became more business than basketball. And it just so happened that he was still good enough to win an NBA championship and compete at that level. But for the most part, I don't think he was able to do that in Cleveland like he would have in Los Angeles in terms of being a business and being a brand. That's why he left.
Yeah, because like I say, because if you want to, there's 2 sides to there's 3 sides to every story, your side, my side, and the truth. Sure. However, the criticism is, well, I'm going to give up the number 23 because no one should wear the number 23 ever again. Next year, I'm going to start with the number 6. Then we find out that offseason, well, it's because he's going to Miami, right? He goes to Miami. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6. After 4 years, he opts out. He goes back to Cleveland. I'm never leaving Cleveland. Now, he went back to Cleveland when it had a couple of first overall picks. They didn't do great with all of them, and a number 4 pick in the same year, 1 and 4. So a lot of draft assets to build a team around. Goes back. That number 1 pick, by the way, the one that did work out, he's like, I'm out. I don't want to live in your shadow anymore. He plays there, 1 more year, and then he leaves. I'm never leaving Cleveland. Boom, leaves again. Right. So like all of those things, I didn't even mention the decision. That was that flop of a press conference.
That was a disaster. That was even though he ended up raising $5 million for the Boys and Girls Club.
That's fantastic. He does make it easy for those that want to criticize him. He does make it easy.
Yes, he does. It's not a situation where you go, well, why are you talking about him? No, he does. But ultimately, Tone, I don't think to end this, I don't think he ever wanted to leave Cleveland. I think what he did in Cleveland, I think he wanted what he did in Miami. I think he wanted to do that in Cleveland right from the beginning. And the people in Cleveland, which I understand, as bad as they were, to watch him win NBA championships, of course they were pissed. Like, what are you doing down there? You're supposed to be here doing that with us. No, you're not supposed to be in Cleveland. Absolutely. Absolutely not. You're not. No way. What up, nephew?
Say what up, nephew.
Hello.
What's
going on with you?
Properly.
Uncle Chill.
There you go. Hi, Uncle Chill. That's right. Are you going to bed?
I don't know.
Say goodnight.
I didn't get called up.
Oh, okay. You just come and say hello?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's check out the watered down expansion. Was the NBA watered down And which era was worse? The watered down expansion era that the Bulls won in, or the load management tanking era of the last 15 years? The reason I bring this up, of course, a lot of conversation about this. We're not going to go through every year. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You're because I remember you ran something like this down, and I'm really interested to hear it again because I had forgotten some of it. But this watered down era thing is really interesting for me, and the reason why it's interesting for me, Tone, because some of the best teams that the NBA has ever seen have been during the expansion era. So I'm interested to hear this. Peace, God.
So we start. We're going to skip a lot of these, but I will start at the top. So the NBA starts in 46-47 with 11 teams. It actually contracts to 8 teams. One of them being, unfortunately, my Toronto Huskies. I was there for that game at Maple Leaf Gardens. No, I wasn't. They then expand to 12 teams, 17 in 49-50. 6 teams drop off. Now, some of them dropped off. There was, whatever. We don't know. I don't think we need to go through the 50s and 60s, just to be honest, right. But I will just give you the history of it. 11 from 51 to 53, it drops again to 10, 53 to 55, 9. During the Celtics run, there's 8 teams, then 9, I guess 8 or 9 teams, and only have to win one round to get to the NBA Finals. Can I quickly? I'm going to do a thing. I have it actually ready for 46-47. Do you know how this was the year Joe Folk won the scoring title with scoring 23 points per game, shooting about 23% too, but from the field.
Garbage, trash.
Trash. But do you know how dumb this was set up? They had the East and Western Conference. Philadelphia and Chicago win their respective conferences. But the 2 teams that finished in second and third in the East played each other, and second and third in the West played each other. The 2 winners of those 2 second-third matchups played each other, and the winner, so the number 1 seeds, played each other, and that's how you ended up with Philadelphia facing the Chicago Stags in the final.
Wait,
it made no sense at all.
The hell?
It made no sense at all. But anyways, story for another day. You should watch Fluent History of Hoops coming soon to TikTok and YouTube. Okay, so through the 60s, we know that there's 8 or 9 teams, and it goes to 10. Do we talk about like this when it goes from 10 to 12? Do we say like the Celtics only won because there was 2 expansion teams?
No.
Okay. What about in 68 to 70 when we add another 2 teams? Do we talk about the Knicks only won, Seattle, or who won? The Knicks, I guess. I think it was the Knicks, and I brought you. I know you know them off by heart, so I was hoping you'd be like, do we say they only won because they added 2 teams here?
I don't think that. I think that expansion at that time was good for the league. I don't think that was a bad thing.
Okay. Then they go to 17.
Yep.
All good. We're still good. 74 to 76. The Celtics, I guess, only won because they added a team.
The league is
what about here? 76 to 80. Who wins in this frame? What do we got? Seattle,
we got
the Lakers.
76. The Celtics won it in 76. The Blazers won it in 77. The Washington won it in 78, and Seattle won it in 79. And Lakers won it in 80.
So when they go from 18 to 22, they add 4 teams. According to JJ Redick, that's 60 new players. So, okay, right. 60 new players. How many years do we say it's now that expansion, it's easy to win? Like, what's the cutoff? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? Like, how long before we...
If you add in 60 new players, there's a transition period. So I think it's got to be at minimum 2.
Okay, so 2 years. Okay. So by the time the Lakers win in 1980, we're good.
I think so.
Okay, that's all that matters to me. We then add another team from 1988. And this is where now they start. Now, keep in mind, we've now gone let's start from 60. In a 20-year stretch, we've gone from 9 teams to 23. But no, that's not the expansion era. No. That's not the expansion era. The expansion era is when we go from 23 to 25. Well, in 1988, 1989, is that the Bulls who were winning?
No, they weren't. That was the Lakers and the Celtics who were winning during that time.
No, and the
And the
Pistons.
Pistons too. I'm sorry, the Pistons were
Pistons
winning
had
also.
back to back.
Right.
Does anyone ever say the Pistons won in an expansion era?
No, in fact, I've never heard that conversation ever.
So when these two teams from 23 to 25 are added, how many players from the existing 23 teams do they lose? Let's assume, I know it doesn't work exactly like this, but how many players have joined from 23 to 25?
So you figure you got two expansion teams. Each team can only
12.
protect. Well, they can only protect 7 guys.
Yes.
So you end up with an expansion draft, and not every guy from the Detroit Pistons was getting drafted. I mean, like Rick Mahorn got drafted to Minnesota. You had a bunch.
That was in the second one. So
Right.
that was not in this first one, but let's by the numbers, okay? So just so people know, because people don't understand how this works. So 23 to 25. So let's keep in mind, what is that? That's 24 players that are needed to make those two rosters. Okay.
Actually, it's 30 because it's a 15-man roster.
Not back then, it wasn't. Back
Okay,
then, it
so
was
still
12. 12-man roster back then.
Okay, so 24 guys.
So
Okay.
24 guys, and each team can only protect 6, but no team can lose more than 1. No team can lose more than 1 player. So basically, it's your bottom 6 guys. So if you're on a 12-man roster now, you could probably have 15. Sorry, you're right. It was a 15-man roster, but only 12 were active.
Right.
So sorry, you need 30 players. You're right. So your bottom 6 players. So remind me in the playoffs, how many man is typical? How many man rotation is it in the playoffs?
It's not 15. I can tell you that right now. And it's definitely not 12. No, it is not. Mm-mm.
Typically 8 to 9, right?
I was gonna say 10. Some teams, it's like the Bulls, or not even the Bulls.
I'm not talking about the guys that play 2 minutes a game.
No,
Yeah.
if we actually talking about rotation guys, like 8 or 9, yeah.
And I challenge anyone. I can't see the chat right now, but I challenge anyone in the chat to tell me that that there's a team in the playoffs that plays, barring injury,
Right.
is playing more than an 8-man rotation. So you have 8 men. Sorry, so you're protecting 6. So your top 9 guys, unless you want them gone, because you might want them gone, let's be honest. Your top 9 guys, unless you want them gone, are protected. So you're not losing any players of value. So let me go back to this. So each team has 1 player. So let's assume there's 23 players. Each team protects their 6. So each team, let's say 1 player from every team gets picked. Well, that's 23 of the 30 needed.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a draft. So there's 46, because 2 rounds, 1 per team. There's 46 new players coming into the league as well.
That's not including the guys that's already on other teams getting drafted. Nope. We also got the guys from college too.
Correct. So you also have guys from college. You also have players from overseas. You have free agents. You have guys who just, because of politics, because they weren't, whatever reason, maybe they were injured. There's guys today that are sitting on the street that are good enough to play in the NBA, right? There are. So to fill that roster, you haven't hurt the other teams. Now, are those expansion teams good? No. But you haven't
garbage.
But you haven't killed the existing rosters of great teams. So back to the point that we're going, not the point, just the knowledge that I'm trying to share.
Right.
Is, so we added 2 teams, that happens, we're now at 25.
Mm-hmm.
So they haven't, the top teams, right? If you look at the top teams, they're not losing anybody of significant value. The one player that people can say that was a good player is this one here when it goes from 23 to 25. And this is still, by the way, this is the Pistons back to back. This is not anybody else yet. This is the Pistons.
Remember, Tone, they lost Rick Mahorn. Yep. Keep going.
That's the one player.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they lose Rick Mahorn?
Because the Pistons couldn't protect him. He was one of the
No, the Pistons chose not to protect him. Why did they choose not to protect him? Look how much money he was getting paid. Look how much Dennis Rodman, the new young better, was getting paid. And they said, well, here's a great way. Rick Mahorn didn't and said no, by the way. I believe he did. He refused.
He went to Philly. Yeah, he went to Philly instead.
Yeah, he refused to play in the for the expansion team. However, it wasn't because, oh no, we can't protect him. What are we going to do? We're losing a great player. No, they put him out there because they knew he'd get drafted because he was good, and they'd get out of that salary.
Right.
Go look at the numbers. That's why I always say, go look at the money. You have Dennis Rodman, much younger and at that point significantly better, and getting paid a lot less. Bye. As my friend would say, bye, Felicia. And he's out. So they didn't lose. So the Pistons didn't lose anybody of any value. So then again, it's the same thing. There's 25 players. So then they expand it two more teams in 1995. That's the Raptors and the Grizzlies. Did it hurt the Rockets?
No, it didn't.
Didn't. Do we say the Spurs? Because the Spurs win in 98, 99.
Right, 99. That was a lockout season. But they didn't have...
Was that an expansion era?
And there was nobody... Well, there was nobody off that. There was nobody in the expansion draft that was on their crew. They had a bunch of journeymen, to be honest with you. They had Avery Johnson. They had Jerome Kersey. They had Avery Johnson. They had Jerome Kersey. They had Mario Ellie.
Sean Elliott.
They had Sean Elliott. They had Malik
and then
Rose.
Obviously Duncan Robinson.
They had Duncan and Robinson, sure. But, you know, they had Jaren Jackson. They had guys like that on the crew. And those guys weren't in the expansion draft. So that's how they got those guys. They got those guys.
And that's the thing. You don't lose those guys. And there's always more players. And that's why I always say, like, when people say this watered down expansion era, all these players come in, what they fail to mention, what the point is, because again, the Charlotte Bobcats come in and take 15 players out of the NBA rosters. There are guys that are good enough right now today. There are NBA talented players that are playing elsewhere that aren't in the league. There was enough players when these expansions happened that this is fine, because look who you're losing. You're losing the bottom one, right? Because you can only lose one player. So were these teams bad that were expansion teams? Yeah, most of them were bad in the beginning.
Right.
But teams like, Charlotte got good real fast.
Yes, they did.
Charlotte got good real fast.
Lonzo Mourning.
Yeah.
Muggsy. Yes, they did.
Now the question I ask is, what's worse? Because from 2004, we haven't had any expansion, but we have had load management. We have had the process. And let's be very clear, ladies and gentlemen, Philadelphia was the only one that admitted to tanking for the process. They're not the only ones who did it.
They actually admitted that, Tom. They said that. Like, we doing this. We're actively doing this.
So that's where I guess I struggle is it's no one ever says the Pistons titles don't count because it was the expansion era, although they won. The Rockets won 2 years in that time as well. The Spurs run at the tail end of it. We never say that. We always say, oh, the 90s, because we're pushing this narrative. And you've heard me say this a million times, I don't think the 90s was the best basketball. I don't. However, I also am against false narratives that say no one said anything about the 60s, 70s, 80s when there was 20 new teams coming in, but somehow I have something against this one player. And so all 6 of his championships came in when they added 4 teams because the league was watered down because those 4 teams. And
even if the expansion era did water down the league, okay, explain how it affected the Bulls. Explain how that affected the Trailblazers. It didn't affect the Trailblazers at all. Explain how that affected the Lakers when they beat them. It didn't affect the Lakers at all. Explain how that affected the Phoenix Suns. Well, the Phoenix Suns, they were playing in the Western Conference. We're playing in a watered-down league, so the competition isn't as good. No. That Phoenix Suns team.
Well, hold on. Let me say the top 4 to 6 teams in the East and West didn't affect them at all, with one exception. I will give you this. Did they get a few extra wins? because they got to play Miami, Charlotte, Toronto, Vancouver, to a certain extent.
But is that the point, though, Tone? That part right there, like, okay, we got a few, because a few extra wins can mean the difference between going on the road in the first round or playing in your building.
All those top teams were getting those extra, like the 72. People forget this. The 72-10 Bulls lost to the expansion Raptors.
Yes, they did.
So it's not even like they didn't take them seriously. I was at that game. By the way, Jordan made that buzzer beater off glass and it went in. They said it was after the buzzer. I was sitting baseline. It was before the light went on, but anyways, different story for another day. But I was cheering that he missed, but I was like, but I'm also honest enough to say he released it first. But anyways, but they lost to that team. So even that, it's just like, it's the same. All the top teams, the Knicks, the Pacers in the West, Portland, Utah, Seattle, they all got the same benefit of playing those 2 or 3 bottom teams. And I challenge you to go and look at the records. Do you know that? And I'm not making this a Jordan LeBron thing. I'm not, but it's just easy to compare. Do you know that in Jordan's run, how many of the top 10 worst records in NBA history were in the East during the Bulls run in the 90s?
Talking about some of the worst teams.
Top 10 worst records ever in history of the NBA. How many were in the 90s in the East?
In the East. 4.
0. Do you know how many were in the East during LeBron's 8-year run to the finals?
Let's see. That Charlotte team was garbage. Philly was trash. Let's see. I'm thinking about some other teams. It was at least 2.
4.
Okay.
So again, it's not a Jordan LeBron thing. It's just to say that. Right. Why was that? Well, it's because there's 2 different mentalities, and this is where, I hate saying this, playing the game, coaching the game, being part of the game. Yeah, you understand mentality. What are expansion teams trying to do? They're trying to get good fast because they understand they have a window to get a fan base, to sell season tickets, and to get people, because they know if we don't do this quick, if we don't get good, at least
turn people right off. We turn people off.
We're going to lose. We're already losing money. Now we're going to lose money and we're going to lose our team. So an expansion team's mentality is we need to win as fast as we can. However, unfortunately, there's been a time now in the 2000s where teams are saying, we're not good enough to win. We already have a fan base, Philadelphia. We're going to create a process where, hey, we're going to lose on purpose so that we can get high draft picks and build a team for you, the city of Philadelphia. And the fans went, oh, yay. And that was worse. Those teams had worse records because they were quite literally trying to lose. So which would you rather have? Teams that are trying to win and build up a fan base, or teams that have a fan base and are trying to lose to get a high draft pick? If you don't have this answer being the expansion team that's trying to win, I question your basketball IQ. I'm sorry. So was it watered down? To a certain extent, but
no, it wasn't, Tone. It was not watered down, because when I think about how and who won the NBA championship. So again, in 1990, who won the NBA championship? The Detroit Pistons. Yes, they ended up losing Rick Mahorn, who was an integral part of what they were doing. However, they had Dennis Rodman, who was better, who was making less money. So they keep him. That did not affect the Portland Trailblazers. That did not affect the Chicago Bulls. That did not affect the Phoenix Suns, who they were playing in the conference finals. That did not affect the Utah Jazz, right? That did not affect the New York Knicks, the expansion draft, at all. So when you think about in 1991, same logic with the Lakers. That didn't affect the Trailblazers. That didn't affect the Pistons. That didn't affect the Knicks. In 92, same thing. It didn't affect the Bulls. It didn't affect the Trailblazers. It didn't affect any teams that was in championship contention in the Western Conference. The idea that you're winning a couple of more games, which could be substantiated on a smaller level, because it could be the difference between having home court advantage and not having it. But in the end, you still got to win in the playoffs on the road. And the Bulls proved that in the playoffs, that they can win in your building or in their building. They proved that. They did the same thing with Phoenix in 1993. In 1993, when they played against the Phoenix Suns, the three of the 4 games that they won were in Phoenix. So they proved that. So the extra wins, I don't think that really affects home court. Same logic with all of these other teams in the 90s when you're talking about expanding, right? And when you're talking about expanding, the Heat did get good. They got good really quickly. They showed up in 88,
Forgot about
but
them, yeah.
92, by 92, they were in the playoffs.
Making the playoffs, yeah.
Yep, by 92, they were in the playoffs, right? So they were building it the right way. When you're talking about these teams from 1990 to 1999, the expansion draft didn't affect them off the strength that it didn't affect the other teams that they were going up against. It watered the league down in terms of, if you want to say it watered the league down in terms of the talent being spread out a little bit more and the lesser got the lesser talent. Okay, that doesn't affect what the Bulls were doing though.
And listen,
nothing to do
look,
with it.
if you want to get even crazier, well, when there's 23 teams, the team that wins the championship gets the 23rd best player coming out of college. When there's 27 teams, it's the 27th.
Get the last pick in the draft.
It gets worse.
Yes, get the last pick in the draft.
So anyways, that was I wanted to kind of bring it up because people have been sending me this ever since, I don't know how long ago it was. JJ Redick said something about watered down Gilbert Arenas. I think it was Gilbert Arenas said something about like there was no, and then what's his face? Ant saying there was no guys with skill. And I'm just like, guys, like, don't listen to these people. Don't listen to these people who are saying stuff to get you to click on and follow them. And they're saying it on purpose. I literally have clips of Gilbert Arenas contradicting himself where he says one thing, then he says the exact opposite, and then the exact opposite thing. Like he's sitting on this panel and I don't even know what show he's on. FYF was actually on it. FYF Sports, is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it's called? Lamont. Yeah, Lamont. Lamont's actually on this call with Gilbert Arenas, and there's like 10 or 12 guys on some I don't know what podcast it was, but there's like 100 people in this thing. And Gilbert Arenas is literally saying, LeBron's first championship was BS. The NBA gave him that. They purposely had OKC. They said the Spurs were old, even though the Spurs were up 2-0 in that series. And they said, no, the Spurs are too old. We're sending OKC to the final so that LeBron could get his first championship. He's not saying that because he believes it. He's saying it because he knows that will get you to click on what he's saying. Mm-hmm. When he said, when I was a rookie, that dusty John Stockton, I put in that work. Meanwhile, he scored like 6 points and Stockton went for 26 on him. Stockton was bullying him up and down the court, right? But on his show,
39-year-old. This is a 38, 39-year-old.
Couldn't do nothing. John Stockton whooped your ass multiple times that season.
Yes, he did.
So you got to be careful when you like listen to people who are saying something, to get a reaction, especially when they contradict themselves. Because he also says, no skill in the 90s. Jordan was, whatever. Oh, but Jordan's the GOAT. Well, which one is it? He was playing against nobody.
It can't be the same thing, Tone. No, that's he had no skill, but he's the best ever, considering what's going on in the NBA now. No, that logic just doesn't work. No.
He couldn't go left, but man, he was the best at going right.
Right.
Can't do
no.
So just that's all I got to say. So because of them saying these things, I'm getting all these people coming and saying, this watered down thing, and I'm like, what? You don't even know what watered down means. All it means is there was more teams, and yes, the bottom 2 or 3 sucked. Guess what? The bottom 2 or 3 teams now suck. I'll put the expansion Heat up against 2 years ago Pistons. How many games did they lose last year in a row or the year before? Before Toronto gave them a win.
28.
That
and
team
was about to be 40, and even though you called it, Tone, you did call it. Chill, Jay.
I told you.
I'm telling you right now, Jay. And just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, we went over this schedule. I had them losing 40 straight games from what I was looking at on that schedule. I had them losing 40 straight games. Tone says to me on this show, Jay, they're going to lose to Toronto. They're going to beat Toronto. Toronto is not beating them. Jay, listen to me.
I guaranteed it. Remember, I guaranteed it.
Jay, Toronto is going to beat them. I mean, they're going to beat Toronto. There's no way. And the Pistons end up losing. The Pistons end up beating Toronto. If it's not for Toronto, they lose 40 straight games. Even though that's terrible for the league, that you got a team in the league losing 40 straight games. Because I was convinced of that. I was looking at their schedule. I'm like, y'all ain't beating none of these teams. None of them. If they could get past Toronto, but it didn't.
I will always take a team that's trying to win versus a team that's trying to lose. Do we have trouble in New York?
We don't have trouble in New York. In fact, we actually have a Julius Randle who's buying in to the system that they have. He's made it clear that, you know, he wants to be a part of what they're doing. And whatever it is that you want me to do, I'll do it. He's made that clear. And I love that about him because Julius Randle hasn't been over the past couple of years, it's kind of been a problem, Tone, where he's been, you know, he's been a bit of an issue, a locker room issue from time to time. He's been an on-court issue from time to time. But the fact that he's actually buying in, I think that's largely due, even though I think it's great, I think it's largely due to him looking at the landscape of this crew and understanding that this is probably the best team he's ever been on. This is the best Knicks team from a talent standpoint. This is probably the best Knicks team since they were in the finals in '94. And I don't even mean from a talent standpoint.
No.
Just overall, I'm looking at what they had when they went to the NBA championship in 1994, and I'm looking at what they have right now. I feel like this is the best Knicks team, and Julius Randle would be a fool to not buy into what they're doing because he's the difference in what they're doing. Like a lot of people don't recognize how good Julius Randle is as a passer. Tone, I don't know if you know this, but in the 22-23 season, Julius Randle was responsible for 156 passes from the paint out to the long ball line, getting downhill and throwing the ball out, drawing kick from the paint to the long ball line. The Knicks converted on 51% of those long balls. That's numero uno in the league. Not only was that numero uno in the league, Julius Randle was numero uno in the league doing that, behind Giannis Antetokounmpo. So he is a shot creator. He 100% can create shots for other people. He's 100% a playmaker. Now, I want you to couple that with last season early, his shot wasn't going in. In fact, not only was his shot not going in, neither was Jalen Brunson's. And we have a guy in Julius Randle who was their best assist man at that particular time. It wasn't for the entire season, but for a time, he was their best assist man. So he will pass the basketball. So now you got more shooters. Now you got more shooters on the floor. Now you got a playmaker in Julius Randle who's buying into the system. I think he could be the difference in them competing for the Eastern Conference Championship. I love what they're doing with him. I do.
We talked about kind of our way too early predictions, and I said that the Knicks were going to regress, go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember? And if you don't remember why I said it's because the only thing that's going to stop them is them, right? If they do what this is saying, right? So if they actually hold true to Julius Randle saying, yeah, if I got to play center, I'll play center. I'll do what I got to do. If they actually play unselfishly,
mm-hmm.
that's the one thing that will. I don't think they will. I don't think they will. And
why
that's
not?
why
What's the issue? And
gut.
the reason why the reason
gut. No, I have no gut. Strictly gut.
You just got a feeling.
Strictly gut. Just like my gut told me to start Jordan Mason because CMC was going to be out. Sorry. Just like my gut told me to draft Alvin Kamara. Thank you. Actually, I'll give credit. Hold on. Let me quickly give credit to the football gods. Justin was like, you have to draft Alvin Kamara. I drafted Alvin Kamara. Thank you, sir. No, just my gut is telling me they're not. And maybe it's because the way that people are today. And
Knicks fan base is I think the Knicks fan base is the biggest motivator here, because it's the same Knicks fan base that is tearing down Julius Randle's poster and they want him out of town. It's the same fan base that welcomed him in with open arms. That's why I worry about Jalen Brunson. I worry about Jalen Brunson because if he doesn't get busy in the playoffs once, the same people who were chanting your name in Madison Square Garden, these are going to be the same people that the next day they will turn on you. So when I think about what's going on in New York with this crew and wanting to prove these people wrong, Julius Randle is the difference, and he wants to prove that he's not a cancer. He can buy into the system. He can be a team guy. He can play basketball the way basketball needs to be played in order for us to win. I think that's the biggest motivating factor for him.
And like I said, if that becomes the case, if they do be this kind of unselfish team, then they will give the Celtics a run for their money. They will absolutely do that. We didn't get any super chats, but as we were going through, I saw some that I kind of liked, so I'm gonna, just call them out. Although we do love your super chats. Fluent and Chill, I don't mean to interrupt, but that means you do mean to interrupt. What players would you guys say got you into basketball? I saw this question and I like this question. Got you into basketball or was most inspirational to you personally?
Well, I already know who it is for Tone. It's the guy that we've been trying to get on here for like since we started this.
I've been talking to his people. Yeah. We just can't lock down a date. Yeah. He did go on and do a podcast with one of his buddies, but it is one of his buddies, so we'll hold him against it. But yeah, I saw Magic play in 1980 and I went, that is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's the greatest sport I've ever seen in my life. I want to be him. Even though I never passed the ball, I clearly didn't match.
I want more of that.
I'm never going to miss a game. And I've been a Laker fan ever since that season. Imagine watching a regular season game and being like, that's my team. And that season they win the championship.
That's how I got. That's what happened with the 49ers.
Wow, wins the Finals MVP.
Mm-hmm. You're on the hook.
On the hook. I'm hooked. I'm hooked.
You're on the hook. Mm-hmm. You're on the hook. For me, it was my uncle.
I know yours. Yeah, but
for me, it was my uncle, and it was Walt Frazier this, Walt Frazier that. But I mean, the guy who was most inspirational, it was Dominique Wilkins. Oh my God, I love me some Dominique Wilkins. As much as I love Jordan, he was the best that I had seen as a kid. But Dominique Wilkins was my favorite player. I loved him. Anytime he was on TV, I was in front of the TV when he was playing. Very much like Tone tells you when he saw Magic, I saw Neek, and I was like, I want more of that. I need more of that. Neek for me, much like Jordan, right? I saw them do stuff that I'm like much like how I think of Wilt. The humans can't do that. You can't do that. No.
I can't do that. Whereas Magic to me felt like how a lot of people look at Steph. They see Steph just like who looks to be this little kid out there shooting it from everywhere. And they're like, I could do that. He's not jumping over anybody. He's not blowing by anybody. He's just like, and I saw Magic, like, although look, he could get up and dunk and he was 6'9", but I'm like, I could do some of this. I could
do that.
I do it. I still do that now. I'll be driving down and I'll be like, whoop. For the record, there's nobody over there. There's no need to do it. But I'm just like, what are you guys? Just a little magic. That's the way that I like a regular pass becomes one of these to me, because of him. So yeah, absolutely, Magic forever and ever will be my guy. If Legendary Wall Art, use promo code SportsFluent for 25% off. If Legendary Wall Art had a Magic one, this would be Magic, and I am going to try and create one, maybe a vertical one to go right here, so I could have Magic and Kobe, which would be my two favorite players of all time right next to each other, which would be fantastic. This is for you.
I'm sorry. Watching the Rocky movies back, they so corny. No, Bob. No, they're not. They're a
little bit corny. They're a little bit.
Today corny. It is like when you think about it today, it's like. But back when I was a kid, nah. When Clubber Lang pushed Mickey down them steps and killed Mickey, I was sick.
Oh, now you just ruined it for somebody who never.
I was sick.
Spoiler alert!
I was wrecked. I was like, what the hell? Man, I like I said, Tone, I really wanted to fight. I really wanted to fight Drago. for what he did to Apollo Creed. I really wanted to fight him. I was like, if I seen this dude on the street, I'll swing on him. And this is a huge Russian, but I'm like, if I saw him on the street, I would swing on him. 100% I would.
But if you did, he would break you. For the record, I've not only on this show have said that I will no longer call Baker Mayfield that name anymore, that not margarine, but the other one. I've personally apologized to him and in fact invited him to come on the show. He said he would consider it. It's a busy time of year, but possibly in the off season. So, good night, my love.
Yep.
Go
to bed.
But yeah, he is doing things in Tampa that I did not think he was capable of doing. And, the Cleveland curse is real.
Hold on for a second. Okay, I don't like the tone of this. Tone, you were out on Baker. You couldn't be out on Baker any more than anybody was ever out on him.
I've been, as you know, give me new information and I will reevaluate my stance.
You'll switch up your style. However,
I'm not stubborn.
Yes. However, in this particular situation with Baker, you couldn't have been more out on it. I'm thinking about quarterbacks. I'm thinking about players that I was out on. I don't think that I was ever
him up in the XFL.
You was finished with him, Tone.
It was done.
Finished. But to see what he's been doing in Tampa now, it's like, wait a minute, he ain't that bad. Maybe I was wrong. Not that I was wrong about you, because I still think you whack. Maybe I just don't think you as whack as I thought you was, but I still think you whack. And that's fair. That is fair.
Been watching y'all for years now. This is my first chatting in here. How y'all doing tonight? Appreciate you. And thank you for commenting. I sent out the link. What we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the 10 best point guards.
Guards, not point guards, Tone. Guards.
Sorry, my bad. The 10 best guards in the NBA today. Jay's gonna give you his 10. I'm gonna give you Fluent Junior's 10. Because I like his list. FYI, for those you guys don't know, like we're friends. Okay. Jill and I, Jermaine and Tony are friends. Okay.
Yes, we are.
And so Jay sends me his top 10 list. And I believe I was sitting eating dinner. And I turned my phone over to my son, to Fluent Junior, and I said, who are your top 10 favorite? Who are the best 10 best guards in the NBA today? And he's like, and he starts naming like 3 or 4 or 5, 6. And he's like, well give me a list because I don't want to forget anybody. And I said, well, I got Jay's list. Give me your list. And so he goes and gives me his 10 and he tweaks it a couple times and then goes, okay, that's it. I send it to Jay. Jay says, I don't hate it. And then he says, give me your phone, voice note. Now you're more fluent. What do you say, Uncle Chill? Now you're more fluent.
Exactly what he said. Now you're more fluent. Because I'm looking at this list going, you know what? This ain't that bad. I actually like this list. I don't hate it at all. I'm going over the list. It wasn't that far off from what my list was, but it was a little bit different. And we've already seen my nephew come in here and give takes about things. And it sounds very similar to mine. So I'm thinking to myself, is this dude in my head? What's going on here? What's happening right now?
So let's go with the voice note deletes. Oh, that sucks. I was gonna play for. All right, so let's go. Here, do you want to run down your list, or do you want to? Do you remember it, or you want me to run it down for you? Because I have it.
I actually got it right here. Yep.
Okay,
I got it right here.
Starting at number 10. So, just do it because I'm gonna clip it.
So at number 10. I got Dame. At number 9, I got Fox. At number 9, I got Young. 7, I got Edwards. 6, I got Book. 5, I got Mitchell. 4, I got Brunson. 3, I got Curry. 2, I got SGA. 1, I got Luka. And I got 2 honorable mentions. I think Ja is going to play himself back into the top 10 this year. And Jamal Murray, he's been decimated with injuries. I think he's going to play himself back into the top 10 guards. Now, remember, these aren't lead guards. These aren't 2 guards. This is all guards. I think these are the 10 best guards in the game, in today's game.
So, Fluent Junior's list. So, I'm right off the bat. we start with a controversial one because some say he's a small forward, but technically I believe him to be a shooting guard.
Mm-hmm.
Number 10, Jaylen Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9, Book. Number 8, Ja. So he already believes he's back in the top 10. Number 7, Mitchell. Number 6, Brunson. Number 5, Halliburton. Wasn't on your list. Number 4, Edwards. Number 3, Curry. Number 2, SGA. Number 1, Luka. So your top 3 are the same.
Yep.
Triple A is going to come on and tell us which list he thought was better, or he might ask us something different. I don't know.
That's what it sounds like. What up?
What's up? What up? What up?
What up?
You got it. You got it. Hey, all right. I'm gonna give you my list. Now it's no particular order, because y'all caught me off guard with that. I was chiming in on the.
You can talk, what did you want to talk about?
Well, it was the what was it? See, I'm having a brain fart right now. We just talked about the expansion draft in the tanking, and I was just saying expansion draft. You weren't getting bad players. I think that's the misconception, only because people like you said push the narrative. But you were getting, I say like you said, you were getting the 7th or 8th man off good teams. So if you get a BJ Armstrong, that's not a bad player.
Well, he was a starter.
Yeah.
You're getting
former all-star. Yeah.
And again, I think we see now even the worst players, if they play hard enough in the NBA, they can compete and keep it close. Again, the separator is usually the last 5 minutes. That's when you get your LeBrons, your Currys, and all that. So, even though it's an expansion draft, you're still getting NBA players that's familiar with each other and compete every night. So, regardless, you're going to have a good game. You're going to have some good competition. When you're tanking, you're purposely losing. You're purposely putting your worst players out there in the worst predicaments possible to hopefully get the best outcome come draft time, and that's not even a guarantee.
Right.
So when I think, most people try to push that narrative to diminish the 90s, and it's never how good the players are now. It's always, and I swear it's always, even with the LeBron argument, it's never, LeBron or X player is that good. It's always, this player was so good, they weren't expected to beat them. So what do you think is supposed to happen? Even when we talk about Kobe and Mike, it's never, hey, they played against these players. It's what they can actually do with their talent. That's why we big them up. It's never what other teams had or what other teams didn't have for the reason that's putting them up, that high. But as far as my top 10, I got Luka, Curry. I don't think anybody said this guy's name. Did anybody say Maxey yet?
Nope.
No.
Maxey. Yeah, Maxey, SGA, Jaylen, Ja, and Fox and Mitchell. I took Mitchell over D Book because I think
that's only 9, by the way.
You sure? 1, 2,
that's
3,
only
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, 10. Luka, Curry, SGA, Maxey. Oh, Halliburton. I'm sorry, I didn't say Halliburton. I had Tyrese under Maxey, so I put both together like an idiot. But yeah, that's my top 10. I think all of them. I left Booker out because I think he has the talent, but he doesn't do what we expect him to do every night. Like take over, be that guy, man. Like I don't care what Durant anybody's talking about. Be that guy. If you're that guy, be it.
If you're the best 2 guard in the game, you have to do that.
Yeah, and we're gonna live with the results.
Yeah, if you are the best 2 guard in the game, and I had to listen to people tell me when I put my list out, I had to listen to people with the recent playoffs. How can you have Donovan Mitchell over Book and Ant? Well, first of all, Anthony Edwards. This is the first time we've seen him in the postseason, this deep in the postseason. That's number one, because he was in the play-in tournament last season, and they ended up in the first round and ended up losing to Denver. That's number one. The last thing we seen from Devin Booker, we saw them get swept out of the playoffs in the first round this season that just passed. And 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, did we not see the Dallas Mavericks kick a mud hole in their ass in their building in Game 7?
The meme is gonna live forever. That foul line looking up at Booker, that's gonna live on forever.
Did we not see them go into their building? I turned the game off in the third quarter when they were up by 40. I turned the game off. I was out. I didn't need to see anymore.
Yeah, so in terms of our last image of them.
In terms of the playoff success, Donovan Mitchell goes to this Cleveland team that was a play-in team. The next year, they're in the playoffs. They're a top 5 seed. They go from being a top 5 seed to last year. They were 2 games out of the 2 spot, and they were decimated by injury. And they end up winning the first round playoff series, and he gets hurt. So this season coming in, I mean, we're talking about one of the better shot creators in the game. I think he's got one of the best stop and pop games in the game, especially at the long ball line. With that being said, I think he defends at a high level. He's one of the better off-ball defenders in the game. I think he's the best 2 guard in the game. That's me. With him being healthy, with Cleveland, avoiding the injury bug this year, to be honest with you, and I know this might be a hot take for some people, Tone, I wouldn't be surprised if they was in the East Finals.
If Mobley makes that leap. But look, Mobley has to make that leap we all think he can make.
You guys know how I feel about Cleveland.
Did you say Cleveland?
You guys know how I feel about Evan Mobley. I'm gonna say it one more time, Tone. I would not be surprised if Cleveland was in the East Finals.
Him and Jaren Jackson kind of looking like the same player.
Mm-hmm.
They looking, they look. I don't know if we should buy what they're selling right now. If they can't get it done this year, then I don't know what to tell you.
I'm going to go back to the expansion draft for a second. I'm going to read you some names.
Yep.
And you tell me if any of these names made the team that they were on, that they were taken away from, worse. Sidney Green. Rick Mahorn, we already talked about. Reggie Theus. Tyrone Corbin. Terry Catledge. Steve Johnson, Sam Vincent, Brad Lois, Otis Smith, David Rivers, Scott Skiles, Mark Davis, Jerry Reynolds, Scott Roth, Mark Akers, Shelton Jones, Morlin Wiley, Eric White, Jim Farmer, Morris Martin, Keith Lee. Keith Lee, by the way, drafted by the Bulls ahead of Karl Malone. Duh. Gunther Bennick, Frank Johnson. Because that was the 89 expansion draft. How much worse did they make their team by not having, and remember, only one player per team max. How bad did those guys get? Now, here's the 95 one. 95. It's he's an older player. BJ Armstrong, Greg Anthony. BJ Armstrong to Toronto, by the way.
Yeah.
Greg Anthony to the Vancouver Grizzlies. And remember, a lot of these guys didn't even play. A lot of them just got released and then moved over.
BJ didn't even go up to Toronto.
Yeah. Tony Massenberg, Rodney Dent, Andreas Gubert, Antonio Harvey, Keith Jennings, Reggie Slater, D'Antonio Wingfield, Trevor Ruffin, Doug Smith, Derek Phelps, Jerome Kersey, also didn't end up playing for Toronto, Larry Stewart, the starting center of the Toronto Raptors in their opening season from Croatia, Jean Tabak. The Houston Rockets really missed Jean Tabak. Kenny Gaddison, Willie Anderson, Byron Scott. Did the Pacers miss Byron Scott at that point in his career? I don't know. No. Ed Pickney.
Easy Ed.
Yeah, he actually did play for the Raptors.
Easy.
Gerald Wilkins, the Jordan stopper. AC Earl also did it. Benoit Benjamin, BJ Tyler, Doug Edwards, John Sally, Blue, who by that point was in Miami, by the way, and went to Toronto just for the parties. Blue Edwards.
Blue
was older, right?
Yeah, he's a lot older, yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was a lot older.
Yeah.
And the one who ate himself out of the league, Oliver Miller.
Golly.
Did any of those players make their team substantially worse that they couldn't compete with the Bulls and the Jazz and the Sonics and the Trailblazers and all the teams that were
draft logic?
You don't even miss them. You don't even
don't miss those. I'm sorry. Houston did not miss Jean Tabak from their championship team. Although I don't even think he played in Houston. I think he was just drafted and then they just owned his rights. And then he did come play in Toronto. He was actually quite horrible.
Terrible. Garbage.
He was the worst.
Garbage.
All right, so the top 10 list of the guards. So that's enough for this. You want to talk more about expansion? That's fine. The top 10 guards thing. Oh, sorry. Anything else? AAA?
One more thing about y'all. Talk about the Saints, who y'all drafted. I think the Saints and the Tampa Bay Bucks are going to both be really good this year because those quarterbacks got a year under their belt to build some camaraderie. That's why I think they're starting off early pretty good. Because those quarterbacks, like Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback, but we expected so much from him right away because he's with the Saints. Now they had a year together. They had training camp together. Everybody's on the same page. Same with your boy Baker Mayfield. we expected so much from him right away. Now he got a year under his belt with his guys. The defense knows what they're doing. So you're going to see them come out early and be better than a lot of teams that is just now, revamping.
Yeah, also some new coaching in with the Saints too, right? You see that they're utilizing Alvin Kamara is now a year removed from his off the field issues.
Yep.
He looks like Alvin Kamara of old.
Yep.
You're
defense
seeing
is still going to be there. They still going to play
guy,
all the defense.
the defense looked good. Rashid Shaheed, making Chris Olave. People forgetting Chris Olave's even on the team.
There, yep.
So yeah, I like what they're doing in New Orleans. Who did?
Yeah, I think they'll be pretty good. That's my take on the expansion team. So I'm not sleeping on Tampa Bay at all. I think they have the same situation that New Orleans had.
All right, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so guards. Let's get back to the top 10 guards.
Real quick, before we move forward, my man Woodage says the Pistons did lose 4 more regular season games in 90 at 59 than they did in 89 with 63. Now, if we're gonna put some context on that, real quick, all they did was change one thing, and the one thing that they changed was Dennis Rodman went into the starting lineup, Mark Aguirre went into the rotation. They ended up rolling after that. Once that happened, and in the process of them doing that, they won the NBA championship. They didn't add or lose anybody else. All they did was flip 2 guys. Mark Aguirre came out the starting lineup. Dennis Rodman went into the starting lineup, and they started rolling. That was it.
And just out of curiosity, can you name me a team that won an NBA championship and won more regular season games the next season?
Let's see. More times than not. I think the Bulls did in 92. The Bulls, I think they won 61 games in 91. In 92, they won 67 games. Let's see. The Rockets, they were actually worse in 94.
They were a lot worse.
Yeah, they were worse. That Bulls team won 58 games in 93. Let's see. In 96, the Bulls won 72 games. The year after that, they won 69 games. Let's see. The Lakers.
The Bulls went, you're right. The Bulls 61, 67, 57 though. So after the second one,
my fault. I thought it was 58. My fault. It's not many teams that the next year, the Heat. I think
you'll find a couple, but typically they win and they understand what's important. Right. Which is, let's focus on the postseason. Let's get ready for the postseason. Again, it happens where they win more, but not tip. It's not. That's the
it's
exception.
Not the norm, right?
Yeah,
it's not the norm.
So for the Pistons, who were now entering, ages 28, 29, it makes sense getting rid of one of their vets and bringing in a younger player for less game. Okay, let's focus on what's important. So not surprising at all. Are we forgetting anybody on this list?
Are we forgetting anybody?
I'm looking at your list. I'm like, because I saw people in the comments saying Kyrie. I'm looking up and down at all the teams.
I'm thinking to myself, right? I'm thinking to myself with the criteria that I have, the idea that you have to do it you can't just do it for a year. Like, you have to be around for a while. And that's why I have Anthony Edwards where I have him. And that's why Ja ended up missing the whole season. So I think that affects him. Dame played himself back into the top 10. That's why I have him at 10. I don't think we're missing anybody, Tone. Like I said, honorable mention guys was Murray and Morant. I don't think Darius Garland is on this list. I don't think Maxey is on this list. Those are the guys. And when I think about the top 10 guards in the game, not just league guards, not just two guards, I'm just thinking about the top 10 guards. I don't think Darius Garland is on this list. I think Jamal Murray is going to play himself back into this list. I think Ja Morant's going to play himself back onto the list. Jaylen Brown, even though I'd love for Jaylen Brown to play the 2 guard, not just be listed as the 2 guard, play the 2 guard. I think DeMar DeRozan is long in the tooth. I don't think that he's in that area anymore. When I think about other guards, Klay Thompson, I think he's over. I think Bradley Beal, I don't think he's a top 10 guard in the game anymore. I don't think Jalen Williams in Oklahoma City, I don't think he's there yet. I think he's getting close to being one of the better guards. I don't think Desmond Bane, I don't think he's there. Buckets plays the 3, even though Buckets probably played half his career at the 2-guard spot.
It's 2-guard, but
right.
he's more of a 3 now,
Right. I don't think Jalen Suggs is a great defender. He's on the all-league defensive team, but I don't think he's a top 10 guard in the game. Just to run down a few guys, James Harden. I think James Harden's best days are behind him.
Russell Westbrook gone.
Russ is another guy who I think that his best days. I still think Russ is going to be productive. I think he's going to be really good in Denver. I just feel like his best days in terms of an athlete, in terms of being an elite player, I think those days are behind him.
Cade Cunningham not there yet.
I don't think Cade Cunningham or Jaden Ivey. I don't think those 2 guys are there yet.
Colin Sexton.
I don't think Colin Sexton is there. Nope.
And did you have Trey? Did you have Trey Young?
I did. I have Trey at 8.
Trade 8. Okay.
I have a difficult time with a guy that's how many double guys at the guard spot are there, Tone? When you think about just double guys, whether it's 20 and 10, whether it's 19, whether it's 50, how many double guys are there? I think Halliburton's a double guy. Trey Young is a double guy. I think that's it. I don't think there's any other double guys in the league today. When I think about
and you said Kyrie, no?
I'm good on Kyrie. I'm trying to figure out on my list of Dame, Fox, Young, Edwards, Book, Mitch, Brunson, Curry, SGA, and Luka. Who am I taking off the list for Kyrie Irving? Considering what he's done over the last 2 years.
I'm looking, and you have 3 shooting guards, Mitchell, Book, and Edwards, and 7 point guards.
Yep. That's
I don't hate either. I don't hate either of the lists, not yours or Fluent Junior's. They're both solid lists. I just always want to make sure we're not forgetting anybody. I don't think that we are forgetting anybody. For those that were here last week, told you that referee Gucci, James Gucci Williams, we pushed back the date that we're going to have him on because we're both traveling. PC weekend for you, business for me. Yep. So October 1st will be the day.
2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today that James, I don't believe we're going to have a show next week if you're traveling. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm going from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Charlottetown, PEI, Prince Edward Island. I joked and said to Mrs. Fluent, I'm like, I probably can't do the show. There's not going to be any internet. She's like, where do you think you're going? You're not going to like 1972. You're going to like, she's like, Halifax is a big city. I'm
I
like,
how matter of fact she is with you, Tone. Like, what are you talking about?
I just, I've never been,
right.
I've been to like 75 different countries. I've never been to the East Coast of Canada. I've been to 48 states. You know this. I've only not been to Rhode Island and Iowa. Those are only 2 places in the US I haven't been to.
Right.
And like I said, I've been to like 70 different countries. So when I picture the Maritimes, the East Coast of Canada, right. I picture it's like these green hills and like a lighthouse and nothing. And she's like, Halifax is a big city. I'm like, no, I'm thinking big rolling green hills, a big white lighthouse, and I'll be looking out for whales, and I'll see the Titanic hit an iceberg and sink. That's
it's some civilization there, Tone. This is not a bunch of what do you call those people in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania Dutch or the Mormons? Not the Mormons, the Mennonites.
What the hell are they? The ladies that wear the ladies that wear the dresses all the way to the floor. They look like pilgrims.
Isn't it? Are they Mormons? No, not Mormons. Mennonite.
I forgot. Amish. The Amish. That's what I'm thinking about. No, Tone. That's not. It's like people walking on green grass.
Cool. No, that's not cool. A little horse and buggy going back.
No, there's actually civilization there. There's tall buildings. There's street lights. That stuff is going on. It's grocery stores. They're not picking tomatoes from the pasture. No, it's not a huge buggy.
I was getting ready. I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to do like a carrier pigeon to send you a message.
No, that's not what's going on, Tony. There's some civilization in Halifax. Yes, it is.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
Lot going on there. Yes, sir.
Either way, I'm not doing it from the hotel. You're not doing it from PC Weekend. So, so it'll be this week. Well, there'll be a best of, best of.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm just reading big rolling hills. I might see a blue fast hedgehog. Yes, that's exactly.
And to no one told he'll get a picture of that too.
So we'll do a best of next week, and then the week after, James Gucci Williams. I need to get that button for it to say like
another one,
but like Gucci. Or actually, I really like that one. Lil Wayne, who, by the way, no disrespect to Kendrick Lamar, but the Super Bowl is in Lil Wayne's backyard. He should be
not doing it right.
He better at least make an appearance. I like when Lil Wayne says, "Who they got? Who made the top 10? Drake's not on the list. Who made it? Gucci Mane. Shout out to Gucci Mane." I love that clip. Okay, Big Fan Breezy is going to take us home because he just popped on and he has something important to say.
What up?
Love the show. Shout out to both of you guys. Y'all already know I'm a fan. I was kind of confused at the title though, because I feel like the expansion era is a good thing. Teams, the NBA getting more teams. Is that what y'all meant by that? Is that what the title meant?
No, what we talked about when we talked about the expansion era was how it affected the NBA and how it affected winning more than anything, and how it affected teams.
Yeah, I think a lot of people said the expansion era created a watered down league that was easier for a certain player to win, and we broke it all down and proved, I think,
that's not true.
That's not true.
No, that's not true at all.
No, I missed that part. I just got here. I'm gonna actually watch that in the playback, but I seen something saying that something about Seattle and OKC. Seattle want their history back. I'm for that. When Miami Heat came to the league, I was for that. When Toronto came to the league, I was for that. Anytime there was an expansion situation, I'm 100% for it. The next thing I heard, I think LeBron's supposed to get the team in Vegas, or Seattle is next. Either one of the two.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about expansion. When we're talking about expansion, I said that before they even talk about Vegas or any of these other cities, Seattle need to have a team back in Seattle more than any place in the league.
No, absolutely.
So absolutely. Good. We wrapping it up. Big Fan Breezy. It's good to talk to you, brother. We'll see you soon. No, absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys. Later, fellas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm going to end it with this question for you. Because we know Seattle. We know Vegas. I think it's pretty much a done deal that those two cities are getting. If there was a third team, because every time I say if you could only pick one and not those, you always pick Seattle. So let's say there was a third team coming in. What city? You're given the keys to the NBA. You have to pick the city. What city gets a team?
I think we could use some. What I don't want to do is I don't want to turn it into bad basketball, but I think we could get another team in the Midwest, or maybe even maybe on the East.
You have to pick a city. What team gets one?
Kansas City.
That's my pick.
Yeah, Kansas City. I wouldn't have a problem with Kansas City having a pro basketball team.
I thought you were going to say something else, because I was going to say Kansas City. When I was spending a lot of time in Kansas City going to Chiefs games, I'm like, this is a sports town. They love their Chiefs. They love their Royals. Heck, I went and caught a Springfield Cardinals game in Springfield, Missouri. And a lot of people don't realize Kansas City is in Missouri. It's not in Kansas.
No, it's not.
Although they do border, whatever. But that Kansas, Missouri kind of area, such a sports part of the world. I want to say town, such a sports part of the world. Like that 100%, I think would be phenomenal. That's it for our show tonight. Again, catch us in 2 weeks with James Gucci, current NBA ref. We're gonna rake him over the coals and tell him why they're making such bad calls. If he sees this, he might not show up. No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna be really easy on you. But until then,
hey man, put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive. Hey man, call your mother. When last time you talked to your mother? Call your mother. We will see you guys soon. But until then, take it light, but take it. Absolutely, man. This was good stuff. I enjoyed that.
I think I gotta call my mom actually.
Call your mother, Tone.
Yeah, I owe her a call. It was her birthday a couple of days ago. Happy birthday, Mama Fluent.
Happy birthday, Mama Fluent.
I talked to her on her birthday, though. I did.